Hey folks, I just wanted to kind of give you a quick bit of information here about sort of like where we're going to go the rest of this week, okay? I want to make sure that you guys have a clear sense as to what work we need to do between now and next Monday, okay? And we can sort out next Monday at that point. All right, so a couple things going on here. Number one, your annotations for Essay 2, those two studies that you want to use for your Essay 2 paper. If you haven't gotten them in, get them in right away. I'm going to try to grade those every day for the next couple days here, so you get feedback on them as fast as possible, okay? So that way you'll know that you're on the right track. All right, I want that taken care of as quickly as possible. And one of the reasons for that is that this article study analysis work is actually due on Wednesday. Now, it's totally fine if it comes in Thursday. I'm not worried about that. The important thing is it comes in kind of midweekish this week, such that I can get you some feedback on it before next Monday. Okay, that's just my initial thought here. Now, I want to kind of walk through everything in the order I've got it here. So the next order of business is Essay 1 Reflection. Now, by the time you guys view this, I will have released your Essay 1 scores, feedback, rubrics, okay? This video here shows you how to view feedback. If you haven't done it before, it will also walk you through how to read a rubric, okay? Just so you know how to do that. What I want you to do after that is to go back into this game plan document. Now, I had you guys copy this in class last week. If, for any reason, you don't have this in your Google Docs, if you missed class that day, what I want you to do, go back to the course announcements, and you'll see it under our in-class work for, I think it's February 7th, the day the paper was due, okay? So just go back, take a look at that. Now, you guys filled in your strengths and weaknesses section in class on that day. So once you've actually viewed feedback from me, I want you to add to that list. You can color code this, for example, so you know what strengths and weaknesses you're adding from feedback that I gave you, okay? And that could be feedback on your essay. It could be feedback that's in the rubric, comments on the essay, those sorts of things, okay? I want you to sort of try to distill those things into your strengths and weaknesses, okay? So go ahead and add to your strengths and weakness list. And then I want you to come down here to the Essay 1 reflection part. We didn't do this last week because I wanted you to have feedback on it. Now that you've gotten some feedback from me on it, I want you to just write like a paragraph here, sort of explaining basically how you're feeling about this essay, what you think you should have spent more time on, whether or not my feedback lined up with yours. If it didn't, what you want to consider, all of those sorts of things. I want you to write me a paragraph just sort of like, well, looking back at this essay now and looking back at it with my feedback, what are you thinking about your abilities, about your strengths, about your weaknesses, about your sense of what you do well and don't do well, in relation to the feedback I gave you, right? Are we on the same page? If not, where do we divert, and what do we need to do to address that, okay? So that's what all I need you to do this week. I want you to add to your strengths and weaknesses up here, and actually write a good solid paragraph of reflection down here, okay? Those two things are your Essay 1 reflection that I'd like you to focus on this week. Okay, so that's feedback. That's really due Monday. You can certainly wait until you get through the source analysis chunk this week before you start working on that, okay? Research discussion. Now, this was supposed to have been started last week. We didn't really get very far on it. Everyone should have gotten an email from me that placed them into a group and gave them access to this document, okay? What I actually want you to do is just to start compiling reasons that these two, or ways in which these two studies differ, okay? How do these two studies differ? So, length. is a great example, right? One study looks at was a 12-week study with followed by a 9-month follow-up. The other one actually looked at people over like a decade, or even maybe even more than that. So what I might do here is I want everybody in the group to contribute to this. And one of the things I will actually be looking for grade-wise is to see that everyone is contributing to this. So I will be checking to see who added what. Okay, it's one of the nice things about Google Docs. We can sort of track who added what. I just need you to sort of identify as many differences between them as possible. Okay, I'll have us work after we get those differences down to think about how those differences might actually impact the outcomes. Okay, but we want to start with differences. So everyone in your group, please add to this Google Doc. One thing I want to point out, if you come over to File over here, you always have an opportunity to email collaborators, okay? And that'll just email everyone that's, excuse me, email everybody that this is shared with, okay? So that will be me and your group mates. So if you want to be like, hey, I added some things, can you guys all try to, chime in the next 48 hours? Anything of that sort, okay? So that is the beginning of research discussion round 1. Again, we're kind of behind on this, but I've got a little bit of a time in here built so we can catch up. Now, scholarly article analysis. Okay, and this is building on the workshop that Professor Moore did for us in class on Monday. We've got 3 things: study design, authorial background and conflict, and journal background. Okay, these are all just little web pages that I have put together, sort of give you some clues. Like, well, when it comes to study design, what do we do? Well, I've got some links here I want you to take a look at, try to understand who the population is that's being studied, what kind of study design we're dealing with. Same thing for authorial background and conflict. Professor Moore did a really nice job of talking about these pieces, but I also give you some information here about how to go about doing that, okay? From there, we have this blank template. You can choose either one of these. This will give you a Word document. If you're a Word user, this will actually make a copy in Google Docs for you. It'll work just like our game plan document did, and will give you a little pop-up, and it says, do you want to make a copy of this into your Google Drive? And it will make a copy, and you can edit it in your Google Drive, and then all you need to do actually then is download it as a Word doc and submit it, okay? I want to show you the sample grid here because I think that's the most useful way to sort of demonstrate what I'm looking for. This is an opportunity for us to sort of build a framework that we're going to use for the essay, okay? So some of these things, for example, 2014, 2015 currency, probably not varying a whole lot between these 2 articles. So this is a place where basically I wrote, it's starting to get somewhat old, but it's more or less the same age as the other article in this situation. It's probably worth considering whether there's more current information out there, but it's unlikely that there's any real difference between them based upon their currency. It's not like one's from 1980 and one is from last year. That might actually show us something radically different, okay? So one of the things we can see here is there are some of these categories that we might not discuss in our essay. Like currency is not something I want to pay attention to because I don't think it has an impact on the data differences that we're seeing in the 2 studies. Authority, however, is, okay? So again, questions here: who are the scholars who worked on the study? Are they experts? Do they have conflicts of interest? Okay? Both John Peters and James Hill, for example, were previously compensated by Coca-Cola for their work. Okay? That's an interesting thing. Okay? And again, like these questions about authority, go to that webpage that I put together on author and journal background. It'll give you a little bit of information there. What do we know about the study design? Okay, this is an opportunity to probably take some information out of your annotations because it should explain sort of like what kind of a study is it? Is it a randomized control study? Is it a longitudinal observation study as a cohort study here? Okay, and what does that mean? Okay, what bias might we see? Okay, again, what's the purpose of publishing it? Both these theoretically are coming from scholarly journals, but do we see any additional purpose coming from the author, coming from the journal? If it's comes from a journal that's got a specific bent, what does that tell us? And then finally, what do we learn from this source? Okay, and this is where I'm trying to get you to think about what's the actual takeaway here. Both of these scholarly pieces are sort of illustrating the relationship between diet soda and weight loss. However, I think there's a very specific takeaway. Those who drink diet soda regularly and quit are apt to struggle to lose weight or to continue to lose weight. Okay? Those who drink diet soda regularly also gain more weight than those who don't as they age. We don't know why that is. That's something that Fowler actually tells us here. Okay? It's plausible that those who are struggling with their weight are more likely to drink diet soda, which could account for this. In other words, it's a correlation, but we don't know which one triggers which. All right? So this is an opportunity. You put your two essay studies in here, of course, and that will give you the opportunity to start sort of building a comparison, to start see where those differences are and what impact those differences might have. Now, I want to go back to week 5 here, and then finally, there's a quick proposal I want to put together. This is where you're going to sort of identify, here are the things I'm going to focus on between these two studies. Okay, so there's a sample here. Again, please take a look at that. And this is going to be based upon the information that goes into that side-by-side document. So, scholarly article analysis, Wednesday, Thursday. I'd like to be able to get you some feedback on it Thursday, Friday, okay? And then Monday, this proposal is due. So my hope is you put this together, you get some feedback on it, and then you can take that information into account as you're putting your proposal together. And this is your opportunity to say, hey, professor, here are the things I'm thinking about focusing on in this essay in particular, because I think these are the things that help us to explain the differences between these two studies and how ultimately that affects what we can learn from them. Okay. So that's our goal there. It's one more check for me to sort of make sure that you're on the right track, you're thinking about the right things. All right. So this is week 5. Please don't hesitate to reach out. If you've got problems with articles for Essay 2, I will be glad to do a quick Google Meet with you, and we can try to find something, okay? Have a great week. I'll talk to you guys Monday.